St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Throughout the Commonwealth, this is an issue that's getting widespread public debate, and our organization wants to proceed that in Canada.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Garry, you now have 7 minutes to present your detailed arguments.
While monarchists in Canada and throughout the world have come to their position for a variety of reasons, I will limit myself, as I said earlier, to the secular arguments that underpin Cartier's statement on monarchy. To me, secular humanism, when applied to governmental structures, requires that those structures reflect and flow from the nature of human beings as they really are, and not how some may artificially define them. The word secularism also comes from the Latin saeculum, age or generation, and means lasting or going on for ages, a characteristic of monarchy. Concerned with the affairs of this world, while an important definition, is only the third one given by Oxford. Reason is also given several definitions by Oxford, including the intellectual faculty by which conclusions are drawn from premises, and a very interesting one of intellect personified. Personification is another characteristic of monarchy. Science is defined as systematic and formulated knowledge. Let us apply these principles to the debate. The terms monarchy and republic must first be clarified. Republicans, for obvious self-serving purposes, like to confuse republicanism with democracy. There is a wonderful example of this muddled thinking in the 1960 John Wayne film The Alamo, when Wayne, as Davy Crockett, states that the Texican rebels against Mexican rule are going to declare for a republic, and then he waxes poetic about the supposed virtues of republicanism, completely ignoring the fact that the Mexico of Santa Anna, against which they are fighting, also happened to be a republic. A republican dictatorship, but a republic nonetheless. The term republic is borrowed from Plato's republic, but the Latin root res publicas actually just means concerning the public, or in its original Greek politeia, concerning the polity. Plato was the father of political science, the field I was trained in. Plato's republic describes the attributes of what today we would call a monarchy as much, if not more so, than that which we call a republic. He is defining a state. He uses the terms architectonic and departmental in describing the state. From his concept, modern political science speaks of authority and power. Authority by its nature is unitary. Power may, but need not be diverse. Democracy and dictatorship are differing exercises of power. Monarchy and republic are differing understandings of authority. So, before we can tackle the question of whether a state should be a monarchy or a republic, we must first ask ourselves what a state is. I would suggest it is the institutionalization of authority. In a monarchy, the state is defined as, and authority is vested in, a person. In a republic, the state is defined as, and authority is vested in, the people. And what at first glance seems a semantic difference makes all the difference in the world. States are necessary for people to live in association with each other, but all states are nonetheless artificial creations of an ultimate sovereignty, of which there are only two, that of the individual human being and that of God, if we believe in God. For the purposes of this debate, I will ignore while not denying that possibility. Humans create states, whether or not there is divine inspiration. So any state should reflect and flow from the qualities and characteristics of human life, that is, from that which is secular. And what are the primary characteristics of all human beings that should therefore be present in the states they create? Free choice is one, the right to decide how we will live our lives. And that is why some form of democracy is a fundamental human necessity in the exercise of state power. Merit is a second, the ability to develop, realize, and contribute our skills. The administration of a state derives from this characteristic. Judges, civil servants, and other officials hold their places and are accepted by others as doing so because of the skills they offer. This too falls under the category of power. Civilized democratic societies, whether monarchies or republics, can both claim these qualities. But it is the third characteristic of humans that provides the foundation for authority itself, a characteristic which monarchists acknowledge and celebrate and which republicans reject but cannot deny because it is an objective fact. It is that the human species and each individual human being, before they can exercise free choice and before they can acquire merit, must come into existence. And human existence depends on one thing alone, the hereditary principle of birth. To reject heredity as a principle is to reject humanity itself. To reject the inclusion of heredity in the identity of the state is to reject the human character of the state. In a monarchy, an abstraction, the state, is vested in a reality, a person, allowing other realities, people, to bind themselves together through a common personal allegiance to the one person. By this process, monarchism humanizes the state. In a republic, one abstraction, the state, is vested in another abstraction, the people, to which real people are fused by a covenant. By this process, republicanism deifies the state. The mantra of the Republican is that the will of the people is the foundation of all. Note that will is singular, while people are or should be plural. The will of a person exists. The temporary will of a majority of individuals on an ever-changing, case-by-case power basis may exist. But the will of the people as the basis of authority can only exist if people cease to be pluralistic and become homogeneous. In other words, if they cease to be humans and are subsumed by the will. The Nazi Republic, the apotheosis of republicanism, understood this. The great Nazi propaganda film by Leni Riefenstahl was appropriately and revealingly entitled Triumph of the Will. By contrast, the Canadian historian Jacques Monette has written, in choosing to leave the selection of their head of state to this most common denominator in the world, the accident of birth, Canadians implicitly proclaim their faith in human equality, their hope for the triumph of nature over political maneuver, for the victory of the human person. I choose a humanized state over a deified state. People as they exist over the people as they do not exist. The triumph of the human person over the triumph of the will. And that is why I choose monarchy, which is the former, over republic, which is the latter, and why Canada should never cease to be a monarchy.
Thank you, Garry. Tom, you have the next 3 minutes to cross-examine Garry.
Well, first of all, I take extreme exception to raising dictatorship republics as an example of the world's republics, and completely ignore the fact that there are totalitarian monarchies as well, absolute monarchies, lots of them, guilty of lots of the same atrocities. The fact is that monarchies and republics aren't terribly different in many ways. And that's one of them. And you can't use that as an example for rejecting republicanism, because if you do, then you're using it also as an example for rejecting monarchism. So I'd like to know how you can get away with using that as an example, but totally forget the other side of the coin.
Okay, that's a valid question, except whether or not there are totalitarian, there are authoritarian monarchies. There are no absolute monarchies in the world today. Now, your point is very well taken, and that's why if you use the scientific method of political science, you try to isolate one characteristic, you compare those that are otherwise the same. So you're quite right. You don't compare, say, the Nazi Germany to the United States or to Canada. But what you do compare is Germany under the Kaiser with Germany under the Nazis. That's a fair comparison. France under the Bourbons to France under the terror of the French Revolution. Russia under imperial rule to Russia under the Soviet Union. And in the more positive side, the United States as a democratic republic to Canada as a democratic monarchy. Now, in each of those cases, I think, and whenever you go through the world, a society that has been a monarchy and a society that is a republic, when they were a monarchy, are a far better society than when they were a republic. So if you say you can't compare Nazi Germany, sure you can. Hitler, when he came to power, said that it was the abolition of the monarchy that allowed him to come to power. Churchill said the Hitlerite monster crawled out of the gutter onto the empty thrones of Germany. Yes, compare Nazi Germany against Imperial Germany. If you think there's no difference between the Kaiser and Hitler, between Stalin and the Tsar, then well, you're beyond hope. Sorry, Tom.
All right, well, if you want to use the Axis powers as examples, Benito Mussolini was a dictator under the Italian monarchy. The Japanese were dictatorships under the Japanese monarchy. what was the monarchy doing to prevent those dictatorships? Nothing. They were sitting by and doing nothing.